Welcome back to Small Caps, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stevenson. I've asked Mike Dunbar, Managing Director of Mamba Exploration, ASX code is M24. I asked him to come back because their Hyden project over in WA seems to be the gift that keeps on giving. The results are out. They've come back and they're looking fairly promising. But this is rare earths, can get complicated. So I'd like Mike to, unpack what these results mean and where to from here. Mike, good to see you again. Welcome back to Small Caps.
Very good to see you again, and good to be back on Small Caps. It hasn't been that long since the last update, but it's nice to be back and be able to provide additional updates on what we've been up to. So it's good to be back.
Well, I think having seen what's with the announcement, I'd like you to let us know what this means for the company and where to from here. So let's just start by explaining today's announcement on Hyden, which is your rare earths project, and what the results have brought back.
Okay. So since I last chatted to you and Small Caps viewers, which I think was in January of this year, from memory, we had undertaken to do a drilling program at Hyden, targeting around the clay rare earth mineralisation that we'd identified historically from the previous explorers. And since then, there's been a lot of activity. So we drilled 22 holes around those historical results, and have really reported just this morning some very, very wide intersections of mineralisation, pretty much from every drill hole that we drilled. Of the 22 holes we drilled into the target horizon, 20 came back with significant mineralisation of greater than 500 parts per million total rare earths. So a remarkable strike rate. And the widths, I think, were the surprise. Certainly was a surprise to me, and also how shallow it was. So we got drilling sections of up to 54 metres of mineralisation from surface to the end of one drill hole. In one of the holes, I think that was hole 11, and that graded 760 odd parts per million total rare earths. So, very broad zone of mineralisation. Other drill holes, 50 metres at, just rattling off some of them, 50 metres at 660 odd parts per million, 43 at just under 900 parts per million, 30 at 940 parts per million. So very broad zones of mineralisation within the horizon we've been targeting. The other really important thing, sorry?
Yeah, go on.
The other really important thing is within those areas, they're all very shallow. So a number of these drill holes, the intersections that I just rattled off, and all the information's in the ASX release. So viewers, knock yourself out, have a read through it. A lot of it is very, very shallow. A number of those intersections start at surface. So to get broad zones of mineralisation like we have from surface or within a couple of metres of surface is quite remarkable. And the other really surprising thing was we drilled around 500 metres north-south and 500 metres or thereabouts east-west, and we haven't found the edges of the mineralisation yet. It's in every single direction. And really, another interesting part is 14 of the drill holes finished in mineralisation. So, so there's potential not only for the clay zones of mineralisation near surface, but there is potential for the mineralisation to continue at depth into fresh rock. Now, we haven't tested that yet, but that's certainly an area of interest, and there's certainly a lot of potential there. So it's quite an exciting outcome, really. And if I was to put it on a scale of what I would have been expecting compared to what I saw, I wouldn't have never in my wildest dreams expected mineralisation of that kind of magnitude over the kind of widths or have it open in every direction as we currently have. So it's a great position to be in.
Mike, you said it surprised you. Can you explain a little bit more to our audience about the sort of mineralisation? Because rare earths can be a little bit complicated. And for non-geos and people out there listening, they might be scratching their heads going, well, what is, I don't know, 22 metres at 1,073 parts per million from 12 metres? What does that mean? And how does that compare to other rare earth projects? Because it seems to me like there's lots of potential rare earth projects out there. Why do you think that this is potentially something so important?
Look, rare earths are a very difficult and different beast, if you like, to articulate to the market what they are, what it means, and what these assays mean. We still haven't pulled apart all of our data that we released today as much as we need to fully appreciate the potential of the system. We do know that there's a large amount of variability in the individual rare earths. Now, rare earth oxides or rare earth elements, it's a basket of around about 15 different elements. Some are light rare earths, some are heavy rare earths, some are highly valuable. So it's a broad range of metals that you're chasing, and the characteristics of each sample even becomes really important. So it's not an easy one to answer. In general, the old school thoughts were heavy rare earths were more valuable than light rare earths. That is, as a general rule of thumb, true. One particular basket, and I don't like using that word, but suite of rare earths, so NdPr in particular is of value for permanent magnets. So each of the rare earth elements have their own niche, and as a result of their niche and their scarcity, depending on which ones we're talking about, have different values. So we need to understand a lot more, and we still don't understand enough about the system yet to give you a really good answer as to what the drivers are and what it means. But what we are seeing is highly variable grades of a lot of the rare earths. Light rare earths sometimes are as high as 90% of the overall total rare earth content, sometimes as low as 10%. Similarly, we are seeing some zones of mineralisation where it's in the order of 90% heavy and only 10% light. So there's a lot going on here geochemically, and that's why we're engaging a geochemical expert in that field and in rare earths to fully pull the data apart and understand what we've got, because it's not an easy one to understand. But rare earths in general, clay rare earth deposits, if we can find zones which are heavy, high in heavies or high in NdPr, they can be very valuable, particularly at shallow depths, and particularly in clay zone areas. After that, and after you understand the mineralogy and the distribution of the elements, we then need to look at metallurgy and how best to extract that material. So there's a lot of work to do. I'm not saying we've got all the answers. We don't, and I'm the first to admit we don't. But what we have got is a really interesting project. You don't see mineralisation of the kind of widths and consistency over hundreds of metres as we have found without it being a system. And that's the important part for us now, is we have clearly identified an area that's 500 metres north-south, still open in all directions, 500 metres east-west, again, still open. And we don't know how big this thing could be yet. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, isn't it? I think it's important for me to understand that these are very exciting results, but it is early. The key takeaway, I think, is that they are very shallow, high grade, which will make way down the track, because we are very early days.
Yeah.
It could be a very important discovery. But Mike, I'm talking to you coming up to the end of March 2023. What do you do next?
Good question. A lot. first and foremost, we are already we have commenced a 50-hole drill program in addition to the 22 holes we've announced today. That is targeting a separate target horizon. So when we got the project, we identified this clay area of interest. We also identified a gravity anomaly, and we did some gravity test work and modelling, and identified a gravity anomaly about 2.5 kilometres to the east of the clay area. That has got a signature similar to a number of carbonatite styles of mineralisation. Now, I'm not saying we've got a carbonatite yet, but it's certainly got some very interesting areas out there that we want to drill.
Sorry, and by carbonatite, you mean rock?
Yes, rock.
Just
so a carbonatite is a type of rock that often hosts large rare earth deposits, or can host large rare earth deposits, or can be the source of narrow stringer styles of mineralisation coming from those intrusive carbonatite rocks. Now, those rocks tend to be high in phosphorus, and so we found some historical drilling in the area that identified some high phosphorus results of up to 2% phosphates in shallow drilling. So we're now drilling that target area as well, 50-odd holes going into that. The sampling of that should be finished by the end of the week, and then we'll get results out from that soon after that. So where to next? We've got the clay area. We've tested that target area. We clearly have got more work to do to fully appreciate the potential of that. But in parallel, we're testing this other gravity target anomaly to the north-northeast, or sorry, east-northeast rather. And we're testing that area as well for the potential of a carbonatite style of mineralisation in that area. So we've got lots going on at Hyden, and it's keeping us very busy and very entertained, that's for sure.
Very entertained. I think it's keeping the market pretty interested, given that your share price was up like 93% today, just quietly. Yeah. You mentioned that the carbonatite's about 2.5 kilometres away from the clays. Give us a verbal visual, if you like, as to how big this area is, because could it contain other rare earth elements in the area?
Yeah, look, so when we first acquired the option to secure the ground, we got 4 tenements. We then applied for 5 new tenement applications in the area. They've all been granted. So now, to put it into perspective, we've got some 1,300 square kilometres of the wheat belt wrapped up under our tenure. We are currently, the clay area we've drilled is 500 metres by 500 metres. So it's a tiny...
The pimple.
Not even a pimple. In the overall tenement package. About 2.5 kilometres to the east-northeast, we've got this gravity low, which has disturbed the magnetic signature in the area, and suggests that intrusive feature is quite late. And when I mean late, quite a young intrusion, which suggests that a lot of these carbonatite styles of intrusives can be quite late and cross-cut everything. This appears to. Early days, and I've got to stress that it is early days, but it's a style of mineralisation and a target that is very interesting. So we're doing that. The next steps really for us are get those assay results back, decide how we move forward with the additional drilling around the clay zone.
Yep.
I just spoke with at a meeting just earlier today with an expert in rare earths, who I wanted to walk through what we're doing with him to understand what his recommendations would be going forward, and some of the plans we had, which include some detailed drone magnetics. He agreed would be a great idea to get better idea and a better higher ultra detailed magnetic understanding of the area. So suggested doing that. There'll be some mapping in the area that we'll do. So all of these things are going to be keeping us busy between now and when the crops go in.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah. Okay.
The next, so I managed to just sneak that in before you got the question in, so that was good. But we've also already had discussions with the farmer, and that the farmers are amazing in the area, really accommodating and happy to work with us, and we're happy to work with them.
Oh, good.
They've already told us, the one particular farmer we're most active on his land. He has told us which paddocks are going to be under crop this year and which ones are not. So we'll factor that into our exploration programs going forward as well, because some of them we may be able to keep working on for longer than others. So if they're under crop, he may be putting crops in by early May, and we don't really want to be disturbing his crops. But other paddocks which are in fallow, we may be able to have access to for longer. So we'll work with him to access the areas we can, and do the exploration we can without us treading on his toes or him treading on ours, so to speak. So yeah, work together with him.
I love hearing mining and farming working together, but Mike, this is just a bit of left field, and I know it's way too early, but what happens way further down the track? You just come up with a deal which helps the farmer and allows you to get on with mining this area.
Look, I'm not going to necessarily speculate on how we would progress this area. It's way too early to discuss. But what I would say is other mining companies have done this around Australia and Western Australia in particular. One example would be Chalice, who made the and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we've got a deposit of that scale.
No, I don't. Don't get overexcited, ladies and gentlemen.
I hope I'm wrong, but don't get overly excited here. But what they did very early on is identified they had an area of interest, and they bought the farms from the farmers, and then owned the farms. And I've seen it in the past work where the mining companies go and buy the farm, give the farmer a peppercorn type right to go and continue farming, a peppercorn lease back to the farmer to continue his farming activities, but the land would then be owned by the mining company. So that can happen. There's a lot of water to go under the bridge, but certainly I've seen in the past mining companies will buy the farm at well above market rates to ensure that the farmer has got a win-win situation for everyone involved. And mining, particularly these, well, depends on what kind of deposit you've got. It tends to be a relatively small footprint relative to the size of some of these very large farms out in the Hyden area. They're massive farms, and even if you think of a large open cut mine, that won't disturb much more than, well, it wouldn't even disturb a kilometre by a kilometre. So that might take out one paddock. So there's lots of water to go under the bridge between now and then, but that's how you'd work with the farm and with the local community to get a win-win outcome for everyone.
I love a win-win. Mike, we're running out of time. Let me just ask you this, if I could. Let's just, if you could explain very in a nutshell, the next steps before I speak to you next time.
Yeah. So the next steps are complete the drilling over the gravity anomaly. That will be happening this week. We'll finish that. All those samples will go into the lab. I'm always loath to say how long it will be in the lab, because if I say a number, it will be wrong. So pick a number. As soon as we get the assay results back, obviously we'll guide the market as to when those results are back, and we digest those results. I think we'll also see between now and then some more analysis of the results and the assay numbers that we've got already to understand what we have there at Hyden, and then from there there'll be forward plans going forward as to how we continue to explore in the area. So Hyden will be absolutely our focus for a long time to come, and it's looking really interesting at this stage.
Well, congratulations. It is looking interesting, but as always, ladies and gentlemen, do your own research. Make sure you head over to the Mamba Exploration website, check for all the updates, sign up for the updates. And if you really want to ask a question that I haven't answered, then give Mike a call. I'm sure he'd be happy to take your questions. But for now, Mike Dunbar, Managing Director of Mamba, congratulations. We'll talk to you again soon.
Great. Thanks very much, Kerry. And I look forward to updating your viewers as we progress our activities.